It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by GetTheTea.com. Check out GetTheTea.com, Life Change Tea. Let's see, it's day number about 26 of the Daniel fast. I've been on Daniel fast now for 26 days. No coffee, no alcohol, no sugar, no white bread, no rice, anything like that. Losing a lot of weight, feeling great. And I tell you, I owe it all to Get the Tea because I started drinking this tea. This is what got me motivated to get back on a Daniel fast. I'm swimming every day. I'm hiking every day, losing weight, feeling great. Life Change Tea. You go to GetTheTea.com. It's not just the tea, by the way, when you go there, although the tea is great and it is life-changing tea. They all kind of supplements and herbal remedies for whatever ails you. So check out GetTheTea.com. You can also check out my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator, at emailrevealer.com. And also to all kinds of services there, like the online infidelity investigation, catch your spouse cheating online, locates background reports, adoption investigations, asset searches, emailrevealer.com. Okay. My good friend Mike Rothmiller contacted me, I guess, a couple weeks back, 3-4 weeks back. And he says, Ed, I got these, Ed, look, guess what I got? What do I got here? He's always emailing me, and I always look forward to opening up his emails. And he had documents, FBI, Freedom of Information Act requests from the FBI about Chappaquiddick. And he tells me, Ed, we're writing a book. Chappaquiddick, The Killing of Mary Jo Kopechne. You can find that on Amazon.com, or you can also find it in the Opperman Report bookstore. Mike Rothmiller, are you there?
I'm here.
Thank you so much, man. I always enjoy having you. You got great stuff. Tell the audience about your illustrious career there with the LAPD Intelligence Unit.
Well, I spent 10 years with LAPD, and out of that, the last 5 years, I was a detective assigned to the Organized Crime Intelligence Division. And basically what we did, we gathered intelligence on mob guys, politicians, entertainers, people that were of interest to the chief of police, movers and shakers. There was no need to have them involved in any criminal activity. We just gathered massive amounts of intelligence on them, much in the same fashion that J. Edgar Hoover did when he was at the FBI.
Wow. So I guess you guys got a lot of secrets over there then still, huh?
They more secrets than they know that they have, yeah.
And you wrote that book about the LAPD. What was that book called again?
That's called LA Secret Police Inside the Elite LAPD Intelligence Network. Excellent. And but that was as nonfiction, and I just described, based on my 10 years in LAPD, that I saw the corruption, brutality, racism, so forth, but primarily within the intelligence unit, the illegal activities that were going on. And basically, if you think about all the illegal activities that the FBI did under Hoover, LAPD was doing the same thing. Black bag job break-ins. I witnessed black bag job break-ins at businesses, private residents. I know LAPD, for a fact, they wiretapped various attorneys illegally, of course, because at that time, one, no police officer in California could obtain a wiretap for anything. There's just none. You couldn't get one. So LAPD, keeping in the tradition that they've had at that stage for about 40 years, they just wiretap anyway. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of interesting things going on, a lot of corruption, a lot of malfeasance.
Yeah, and you talked about in our last interview, a couple last interviews, about how Gates was CIA, huh?
Yes, he was, which a lot of people don't understand, is the close working relationship the CIA's had for many, many years with law enforcement throughout the country. And I have documents on that. I've been able to pull out the CIA and the National Archives where they would train selected law enforcement officials in various cities, whether it's sheriff or police, on how to wiretap, how to break into buildings, how to use lockpicks and so forth, how to plant wires and bugging devices and everything you can imagine. And then what they did is they recruited agents. And now there's a difference. There's a CIA officer and a CIA agent. The officer works directly for the CIA, and they're an employee there. A CIA agent is somebody they go out with and they either contract with or they just do it as a favor. And those people can be in private industry, government, police, anything in any business line. And they may be working full time in a sense, or they may just be called upon periodically to do something for them. And what made it great for the CIA is that if you have law enforcement doing things, it doesn't come back on their shoulders because they're, as you know, they're prohibited from, for better terms, spying on Americans on U.S. soil. If you're off U.S. soil, you're fair game. But on U.S. soil, they can't do it. But the police can do it. So they would basically farm out their activities within the United States, a lot of them, to local law enforcement. And what that was regarding Gates, Gates was a CIA agent for probably at least 20 years that I know of, that I've been able to document. And that it was not only me, it was the SAC of the FBI office in LA, the head investigator, the head FBI agent. We had a conversation probably, I'm thinking right after my book came out, LA Secret Police in 93. And he told me, he says, well, you know, Mike, he says, you know, Gates has been doing work for the CIA for years, and a lot of your people in intelligence did. I said, well, I knew a lot of them did because some of the investigators would take off and they'd be gone for a month or two. And they'd come back and I'd say, well, where have you been? Because they showed that they were working. And guys said, well, I was in Nicaragua. Another one, I was, in Guam, and I was, in Mexico and all these other places running operations for the CIA.
Yeah, I encourage people to go back and look at the old archives shows with Mike Rothmiller, LA Secret Police. Great stuff. We can go on forever on just that. But we're here to talk about Chappaquiddick today. But before we get to that, Chappaquiddick, The Killing of Mary Jo Kopechne, your new book. Hey, what about Anthony Pellicano is about to get out, right? And a lot of people speculate that he might have been CIA because he had that device, where you could wiretap people remotely. What do you make of that?
Oh, Stingray?
Yeah.
One, I didn't realize he was getting out soon.
Yeah, very shortly. We got to watch what we say because he's getting out any day. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the Stingray. A lot of law enforcement personnel had those. They acquired them, and then some other people acquired them off the black market. So just about anybody who had the money and understood what they were used for and how to use them probably could have gotten their hands on one.
Yeah, but I believe he had the guy who had the patent on it. The patent, the guy who invented it worked for Pellicano.
That I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, do you suspect he was CIA too? He had some contact with the CIA for sure. Yeah,
I had one dealing with Pellicano. You meant many years ago, and what happened was I'm trying to remember which was one of the grocery store publications. You see, I won't give it any name, but they wrote a long article about me and Michael Jackson at the time. And I'm looking, I said, one, I've never spoke to this reporter. I have no idea what they're talking about. And that's when Michael Jackson was going through his trials. And so I had to contact Pellicano and say, hey, listen, I don't know where they got this information. This reporter's never spoken to me. I don't know what they're talking about, quite frankly. And so that was my only dealing with Pellicano, and he was very nice and very thankful that I called him so they could make some sort of move at that stage and demand a retraction or whatever they did.
Yeah, he probably already had you tapped. You didn't have to call him. Just stand near your phone and talk to him, Okay. Anyway, it's in this book, Chappaquiddick, The Killing of Mary Jo Kopechne. Now, there's a movie coming out, and it looks like it's really well done. I saw the trailers. What is the story?
I saw the movie.
Oh, you saw the movie already? It's out?
I saw the movie last week, yeah.
It's already out?
Yes, it came out this past Friday.
Oh, I'll go check it out. So tell us, what is the story of Chappaquiddick, and who was Mary Jo Kopechne?
Well, Mary Jo Kopechne, she was basically the secretary to Robert Kennedy when he was running for president. And she was with him, traveling around the country during his campaign when he was assassinated and so forth. And so Teddy decided to, with him and a couple of his buddies, have a party on Chappaquiddick Island. And so they rented a small house, and they went up there and they invited what they were called the Boiler Room Girls in. And those were all the, let's say over 18 to about 26, 27 good-looking girls that worked for his brother, Robert Kennedy, during his campaign. So I invited all them up there to get together and just have a party and chit-chat about his potential run for the presidency. So they were there on the island. Teddy was doing his usual thing. There was a lot of drinking going on. And he decides to take Mary Jo for a ride off by themselves. Now, that's where everything becomes fuzzy, because I saw some intelligence documents on it. And Teddy later on during the inquest and so forth, he says, well, I was trying to drive her back to the mainland and all that stuff. But what happened is that he was drunk because he was a complete alcoholic. And there's no doubt in anybody's mind that he was taking Mary Jo out to try to have sex with her. Mm. And so when they were driving across the island, a very small island, he almost runs off the road one time because he almost hits a police car coming head on. The cop just sees them. Teddy backs up, takes off, just speeds away on a dirt road. Cop doesn't do anything. He just kind of shakes his head and goes about his business. And going down that dirt road was where the bridge was, and Teddy went up on the bridge and drove the car off to the right side, and the car went into the water, was upside down. What's interesting about it, the movie follows that pretty well. And Teddy said, well, because I read a lot of his testimony that he gave, he said, well, I don't know how I got out of the car, which he may not remember. That's fine. But then he said he kept diving down to try to rescue her. And what was interesting, he had basically said that he had dived down, but the windows were all rolled up on both sides of the car. The doors wouldn't open. So then you have to ask yourself, well, wait a minute. If all the windows are rolled up, Teddy, and the doors were shut, how did you get out?
Right.
And he didn't know. But what all the reports show is that the passenger window in the front and the rear of the car were both broken out. The driver's side window was broken out, and that was all or down already from the impact. So there's certainly a way to get in. The water at that time, because the tide was at slack tide, had already receded and hadn't come back in yet, was probably about 4 foot deep, if that, the deepest point.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't that deep because the rear tires were completely sticking out of the water, and there was the tide runs in and out through this inlet. But I read the inquest report, and it was at slack tide after it went out, so it wasn't very deep. And so he could have just reached down, taken a breath, kneeled down, reached in, looked in, even though it was at night. You don't have a mask on or anything for diving. You can't really see, but you can feel around. You can get in there. And did he do that or not? He claims he did. Nobody really knows. But what is of interest, and this, I also remember this from reading LAPD intelligence reports, is that they absolutely believed that she was alive for probably at least an hour after the car went in the water, because it flipped upside down and formed an air pocket.
Right.
And she was basically in the back seat at that stage, up in the air pocket. And they made that conclusion because, one, the way the car was, and they did a little testing, but also she didn't have water in her lungs, even though they didn't do a full autopsy. The people who looked at her said she was basically foaming at the mouth and through the nose. And that generally comes from asphyxiation. Mm. And so that was basically covered up. That was buried. It just, the whole thing stunk regarding Kennedy's situation. I pulled the grand jury testimony. And now you've been to grand juries before.
Sure.
And I've testified before them. And normally, by the time, if you're called in, you sit down, they say who you are, you swear an oath, blah, 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 and you start to talk, it's 15 to 20 minutes before you say anything. Well, they pulled in 4 witnesses, gave their testimony in 20 minutes, a total of 20 minutes. Now, have you ever heard of a grand jury doing that?
And who were the witnesses? His friends who supposedly helped him look for the body? Who were the other witnesses?
Just, witnesses.
Yeah.
And so you knew instantly once you see that, you say, wait a minute. There's something really wrong with that grand jury. And you have to remember, all this happened in Massachusetts. That was then the kingdom of the Kennedys. They were the royal family. They ran that state. And that pretty much comes out in the movie, too, that Daddy Kennedy, he called a group together immediately to start bringing up the alibi for Ted and to get him off the hook. And so there's no question that money exchanged hands, but how much and who received it, that's the big question, which we'll never know. But there's no doubt he was absolutely drunk at the time. He should have been charged with manslaughter. He was charged ultimately with leaving the scene of an accident where there was bodily injury. Well, she died. He copped a plea on that. He copped out to it right away to, kill any more investigation. And he received a horrible sentence. The judge gave him 2 months, right, in jail, and he suspended the full sentence.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
He didn't do a night in jail for killing her.
Yeah, and other things too. Like when he left the scene of the accident, he walked by houses that he could have went in and made a phone call. He went all the way back to the party. Just a whole bunch of shenanigans that night. Just disgraceful conduct.
Yeah. The whole thing stinks, and the movie brought that out pretty well. Obviously, the movie, the producers over, they did not have access to all the intelligence that I had, and they pretty much based, from what I saw, the movie on what I have in the book. Because what I did in the book, I just took what the FBI called through everything, all testimony, and they came in with like the top or the most important, say 120 pages of testimony and information, so forth. And that's what I have in the book, is the FBI's final conclusion. But once again, they didn't say, Teddy was drunk or anything, but you bring in the testimony of him, and his testimony's in the book, and you look at it and you go, oh my God, this guy is it's completely scripted, and he's completely lying about everything.
So what you have in the book is a grand jury testimony transcript and all these other documents. Some of it I've seen because you sent it to me. Some amazing stuff. Like E. Howard Hunt was down. Describe the whole thing. What happened? Nixon sends a whole bunch of thugs and plumbers and PIs and CIA guys down there to start spying on everything and seeing what's going on. Describe what happened.
Yeah, well, right after it happened.
Well, you know what? Before you get started, maybe this would be a good time to take a commercial break. We're with Mike Rothman, retired LAPD detective, retired. The book is Chappaquiddick, The Killing of Mary Jo Kopechne. Fascinating stuff. And he's got all the secret stuff, the FOI documents and stuff like that, the transcripts. It's all in the book, Chappaquiddick, The Killing of... And now a word from our sponsors.
Hi, folks. Ronnie here from Life Change Tea. There's a lot of hubbub about the ramifications of GMOs. First of all, what are GMOs? Genetically modified organisms. Yee! Man-made organisms entering our body, changing and damaging us from the inside out. What's our defense? First of all, not eating them. Second, cleansing from them when we do eat them. Thank God for Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea cleanses from toxins, heavy metals, and helps flush GMOs out of your body. Our unique blend of herbs help cleanse you from the inside out, helping you feel refreshed and clean of yee. We also carry unique one-of-a-kind supplements. So order online at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Rid yourself of the yee that contaminates your food and water. Go to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Get the tea, your best defense.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subhash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company. They're located in India, so you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service. They offer all sorts of business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshoring, research network, customer care, press release, content writing and distribution, and much, much more. Now, you can get a hold of Subhash Technosis by email at info@subhashtechnosis.com. Their website is www.subhashtechnosis.com, and their Skype is ANUSHASUBASH.
WPR rebuttal. covering the sides of the story missed by Wisconsin Public Radio, bringing you narratives the UW System Board of Regents won't allow, shedding light on perspectives the owners of WPR don't want you to hear. Every Thursday at 12:30 Central Time, WPR Rebuttal is your destination for grassroots journalism in Sauk County and beyond. Our host, Senator JPO, provides insightful analysis into stories that are only superficially covered by mainstream press. A recent inventory of topics includes college graduate underemployment, yellow journalism in the media, and favoritism in the public sector hiring process. Get your WPR Rebuttal fix Thursdays at 12:30 Central Time.
We all have questions. Did he do it or did he not? We all have opinions, but do we really know the truth? New evidence will now be presented and the ultimate answers will be revealed in the explosive documentary, Serpents Rising. Inspired by the bestseller Double Cross for Blood, an independent investigation of the trial of the century, the lies, the myths, and the concealed evidence. Don't miss Serpents Rising.
This excellent documentary film is available at Serpents Rising at Vimeo Videos on demand. Watch it for $1.99. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. We're here today with Mike Rothmiller, former LAPD Intelligence Division, Chappaquiddick, the killing of Mary Jo Kopechne. So, Mike, what'd you find in your FOA, FBI documents?
Well, it found a lot of interesting information regarding Ted Kennedy. And also some of it came out of the Nixon Library and also out of the National Archives. Most of it deals with Nixon sicking, for a better term, not him personally, but Ehrlichman and so forth, various PIs on Kennedy and the family right after Chappaquiddick. There was a lot of it, and I have one that's really pretty interesting, but it was on July 31st, it's on White House stationery. It was for John Ehrlichman from Jack Caulfield, and it talks about their PI who's up there in Chappaquiddick following Robert Kennedy Jr. around. And he was seen as driving two elderly persons in a vehicle, and their movements were very discreet, it said. And Robert Kennedy Jr. was off in the distance trying to observe the car that was covered in a tarp and so forth. And he was staying at a very fashionable house up there. But it said, this is kind of interesting, says a little side, says he apparently has all the Kennedy instincts, including an eye for pretty girls. So this PI wrote, and this is going to Nixon, which is pretty interesting. And then
it's fascinating that even in a crisis, they're still chasing tail, these guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing slows them down.
It is. It's pretty funny. Yeah. And then there's also a movement from the Progressive Labor Movement, who was at that time a left-wing extremist group. They were up there and they were picketing the Edgartown Police Department because they said the police were involved in hiding the truth about Ted Kennedy in this accident, which I don't know if they were hiding the truth. I think they were, it's a very small town, probably three guys on the PD. Who knows how much training they have, but at that time, probably the chief did not dare say anything against the Kennedys. He is probably terrified of them.
Yeah.
And then what's interesting, they have a former New York City detective named Jim King, who was a bodyguard for Bobby Kennedy for a long time. And he was observed with Ted Kennedy in Massachusetts, basically serving as his chauffeur. And apparently the PIs that were up there, they know this Jim King, and obviously he knows them. So they said they couldn't get that close to him because they were worried about being discovered. And so they stayed back, but they said if he stays with Kennedy, they think they can develop some great information. And they wouldn't put it in writing, said they will see them in person and give it to him. So no telling what that information was, but there's just loads of information like that out there. And especially when you get into, which I did, into Nixon's tapes, as you know, he taped everything. And it's pretty interesting the conversations regarding Ted Kennedy and Chappaquiddick, so forth, that Nixon had with Kissinger. And he's talking about this. I have it here. I can quote it to you. Nixon says to Kissinger, says, "What the hell is the matter with Teddy? It isn't a question. I mean, I don't think it's a sex business. I think his problem, meaning his lack of discretion, don't you think it's his booze? He can't resist booze." And Kissinger basically says, "Yeah, I think that's part of it. You know, he's an alcoholic, and he drinks a lot. Then he starts chasing women, and he gets away with it, as did all the Kennedys when you come down to it." But then they were talking about having, also regarding this, is having the IRS jump on Kennedy to see what they can uncover. And this was Nixon and Ehrlichman were talking about this. And they also were interested at this one time. Kennedy flew to Pakistan for some reason. Nobody knew what it was for, but he went there. He stopped in Hawaii, and they had some PIs over there following him around. He was in Hawaii to see what young ladies he would try to hook up with and so forth. And it goes on that Nixon said Ted was a son of a bitch, and that they need to get some sort of insurance to protect him. And so they were talking about, well, what do you mean? And this was regarding Ted Kennedy running for office against Nixon. And he said, well, he's got to buy some insurance. Then after the election, if he doesn't get a goddamn thing, if he gets shot, it's too damn bad. So Nixon was even kind of expecting, which a lot of people, that if Teddy ran, he would be shot. And Nixon is just saying, well, that's fine with him. But then it gets down to another point where they're talking about assigning Secret Service agents to guard Ted Kennedy during his election process. And Ehrlichman and Nixon are conspiring that they want to place at least 2 or 3 Secret Service agents who are basically in the pockets of Nixon and Ehrlichman on his protective detail, so they could secretly report back everything that Kennedy is doing, whether it's going to an apartment or to a hotel or whatever, but they want to know every move he makes. Now, that I don't think is probably too different from every president, that they try to do that.
Okay.
But this was Teddy. They knew he'd eventually fall off the wagon. And the one thing that is very interesting that isn't in any federal archives, but was within LAPD intelligence, is that, as I mentioned earlier, that Nixon ordered wiretaps on Ted Kennedy at the time. And a president can do that, but it's not going to be used in prosecution. They just order it and it's done. It can't be used in prosecution. So he obtained a lot of interesting conversations that I saw on the LAPD intelligence documents, that Ted Kennedy, he was talking to various women, for better term, assistants within his office, about meeting him secretly in hotels and at different homes so they could have their fling. And the plan was that if he did run for the presidency, these clips would be given to the media. They'd be released. And so here you have Ted Kennedy's own voice. It's not a transcript, but it's him talking to somebody about setting up a tryst. And at that time, that certainly would have destroyed a presidential candidate.
Almost like Access Hollywood, right?
Yeah, exactly. The video. You have a hot mic, and you keep it until you say, oh, boy, this could be worth something. But they were also going after Teddy's wife because she had an alcohol problem and a drug problem, and they were really looking at, for a better term, smearing her, in a sense that she came to the White House and she was wearing hot pants and a body stocking that was skin tone. And when you'd see her from a distance, she looked like she was naked. And so they were talking about that.
Wait, she went to the Nixon house? Went to the Nixon house just like that? Or
yes.
Really?
Yeah, there was like a party thing going on.
Okay.
And she comes over, and so they said, they're talking about how if they get photos that are just right, she does look naked from the waist up. And they could release that to the media saying, this is the way his wife walks around in public in Washington, D.C. They were looking at everything pretty sleazy. But once again, we're talking about Nixon, and Nixon did a lot of sleazy things.
Yeah. Well, one more thing, too, people need to remember is that at the night that down in Chappaquiddick, when Keddy is taking this girl out for the ride in the car, and she left her purse behind, she left her keys behind. He wasn't driving to the hotel. They were going to the cemetery to make out. But his wife was home with a difficult pregnancy, and she lost that baby because of all this craziness that went on.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
exactly.
like two tragic deaths out of this whole situation. Oh, boy.
Yeah. And you want to remember when Jackie Kennedy had a miscarriage. You wonder if that's because she heard about another incident regarding John Kennedy, because he was just like it. Well, all three of the brothers were the same. Mm. And, you wonder if that caused her a lot of emotional distress, which resulted in a miscarriage. But certainly this one here, Ted, is like I said, his wife's at home and he's out. Well, this is a great time for me to go out and have a party with some young gals.
Yeah. And they were all the men were married, all the young girls were single.
Always.
I just had on the show Bill Burns, and he did a book about Dr. Feelgood. The doctor that was given the methamphetamine to Kennedy. Did you hear anything about that?
To which Kennedy?
Jack Kennedy.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was getting loads of things. I have a lot of his medical treatment. He was getting up to like 6 injections in his back per day.
Wow.
He was taking Demerol, basically like M&Ms. And I have some of his conversations speaking to his White House physician about getting more pain pills. And I tried to get his medical records, which are all within the National Archives, but they're locked up tight because of the Kennedy family. And so I had a long discussion with the archivist there. I said, well, wait a minute, or the chief archivist said, here he is, he's the president. He's getting paid by the federal government. His medical care is being provided by the federal government, as are his medications. That should be public information, accessible. And they said, well, you can look at it, but you have to be a medical doctor or have a PhD in the medical field. If not, you have to bring one with you to the National Archives. And before you can do that, you have to tell them why you want to look at those records and what the information is going to be used for. And they decide then if you can look at his medical records. And I've got some medical records from him. And quite frankly, Jack Kennedy was a drug addict.
Yeah.
Not using like heroin, street drugs, but from prescription. He was loaded all the time on pain pills, Vicodin, Demerol, so forth, injections. And how he continued to function is quite frankly amazing. And I sent just the medical records that I had, what he was taking, his medication, to 3 different MDs that I know. And one guy has a lot to do with drug rehab and all that stuff. And they said, I don't know how he was alive with the amount that he was taking. And he certainly would have died from an overdose within a year or two. So he had some real problems.
And let me ask you a question. Do you actually visit the National Archives in person to get this stuff?
Well, I generally don't go back. A lot of it you can get online. A lot of it you can request. And generally what I do is from sources that I have, and I have some pretty good sources within the National Archives.
Okay.
And they'll tell me about something. I'll file a Freedom of Information Act to get those documents. And I went to the National Archives out in Southern California before and dug through them and to like the Nixon Library and so forth. So there's a lot there if you know where to look. And it's truly amazing what you can uncover. I mean, it is astounding.
But it helps to have guys on the inside tipping you off to what to look for, right?
Yeah. That takes a long time. And I'll give you a real quick example. From a well-placed source within the military structure, let's put it that way, I heard about a nuclear issue they had when they were blowing off, nuclear weapons back out in the Pacific. And I never heard of this one, the code name, so that he gave me the code name. And I finally went to the National Archives in California. They didn't know it. And then they pulled out a big box, just a cardboard box, and gave it to me. Said, here you go, look through it. And I started going through it, and here I found it, and the code name for it and everything. And what they did is, it wasn't the first time, but they had blown off an atomic bomb. And before, though, the weather people that were there saying, hey, no, the winds are going to change direction. And so they said, we can get off with it. We'll blow it up anyway. They blew it off, and all the radioactive fallout fell on inhabited islands and on ships that were passing by. And so it was all handled pretty much under the table. It was kept quiet. But what they decided with these particular islanders, there were, maybe about 2,000 of them got a huge dose of radiation. They said, well, let's tell them we're going to give them medical care. There's nothing we can do for them, but let's watch them and see how.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, there's loads of stuff like that, but you just have to find it, and you have to really dig and dig and dig.
It's a fascinating. The abuses that have gone on in our government, in the history books are not going to look kindly on us 100 years from now,
No, because I have one on, I have Bill Clinton's telephone conversation.
Yeah, you were telling me, right,
Yeah, and they are still hiding. I've had them for years, and I want the follow-up. And there's no doubt, just reading this one document, his telephone transcript to the Prime Minister of Pakistan, he knew 2 major attacks were coming on the U.S. because he told the Prime Minister. He was terrified. He wanted them to go in and knock off bin Laden. And they basically said in there, if this stuff happens, there's going to be worldwide retaliation. Right after that, I started checking, okay, what were the things that bin Laden did, terrorist attack? Right after that, 9/11. Well, then prior to that was the USS Cole. I gave that document to some very high-ranking people that were flag officers at the time. I said, what does this mean to you? And they go, first question was, how in the hell did you get that? They asked me. And they said, he's absolutely talking about the USS Cole and 9/11, that he knew this stuff was coming. He may not know the exact date, but he knew more about it because he goes into detail talking to the Prime Minister. Anyway, I've been trying to get those other documents, and I've got the Office of Government Information Services on my side. They're trying to get it. They've been trying to get these for a number of years now, and they have flat out told me, said, the National Security Council and the State Department are refusing. They don't want this information out. And it's plus Bill Clinton has to personally approve its release, and he said he's not going to do it. So then you have to ask why.
You have that in your book. So which book do you have that in?
That's in Secrets, Lies, and Deception. Okay. That was the book that came out about 2 years ago and was covered on Fox News and everything. But I'm still fighting for those. And the big question is, why is Bill Clinton refusing to release those? Why? What's he covering up? And I think I already know. But I want to see it, his transcripts and the other documents on it.
All right, I got to take another break. We're with Mike Rothmiller, Chappaquiddick, The Killing of Mary Jo Kopechne. When we come back, we're going to be talking about E. Howard Hunt was going under the name Patterson, trying to stir up some trouble down there. Am I correct on the name there? And McCord was involved in this. Now, Hunt was CIA. McCord was what, FBI?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Then we got a story about...
It could be wrong.
We got some stories about Teddy Kennedy's parties on Capitol Hill behind closed doors. And then Henry Ford, a great story about the Henry Ford family. So we'll be right back after these messages with more of the great Mike Roth. And now a word from our sponsors.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
Thank you so much for listening to the Opperman Report. I want to welcome all our new listeners at WWPR 1490 AM in the Tampa Bay area. We're brand new down here. We're getting a nice warm welcome. We have great advertising opportunities for local sponsors, local businesses, but also international websites and international companies too, on our other stations in California, Nevada, Utah, and on the internet worldwide. But down here in Tampa Bay, Florida, we have some great opportunities for you to come in and get very, very affordable advertising rates. Get a hold of me at oppermanreport@gmail.com and we'll cut you a good deal. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild. The Opperman Report is brought to you by aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. We're here today with Mike Rothmiller. Author of the latest book is Chappaquiddick, The Killing of Mary Jo Kopechne. But don't forget to check too, LA Secret Police by Mike Rothmiller. So, Mike, what can you tell us about the E. Howard Hunt and McCord being down there? What were their duties?
Well, they were, working for quite some time for Ehrlichman and the White House. And they were down there snooping around under assumed names. And who knows how many assumed names. But the one main guy was Jack Caulfield, who earlier when I mentioned that White House memo, he's the one that wrote it. And he was basically, for a better term, in charge of them, telling them what to do and where to go. And they were very interested in getting more and more information on Chappaquiddick as time went by. And also they were also trying at the same time, trying to bug McGovern because they were thinking that down the line he's going to run. Well, he ended up running, and they were looking at bugging his offices too. But the whole thing was just to get as much information on Edward Kennedy, so that they could leak it to the media and just do a wonderful job at destroying him. Now, at that stage, they didn't need to do a lot because Teddy Kennedy was destroying himself. But they wanted to make sure they had all the nails in the coffin. And so they were gathering all the information they possibly could.
Yeah, and Hunt was actually sending letters to the Senate Ethics Committee, something like that, and telling him about the perjury, that he was committing perjury in his transcripts at the hearing, right?
Yeah, and exactly what names he was using at different times, because he was also sending the same sort of information to the what Jack Anderson was a columnist back then,
okay,
and to various publications, various news organizations, and also Hoover was very interested because he was collecting all of this himself, and I've got documents that he was just sitting back, getting all this information, and saying to himself, no matter who wins, Nixon or Kennedy, I'm set for life, in the FBI, because he had enough to bury both of them. And so it was really, when you look at it and you start going through it, there's a lot of very, very interesting information, and all the players basically trying to get enough information to screw the other guy.
Yeah, they're all blackmailing each other.
Game's always played.
They're all blackmailing each other. Everybody's digging up dirt on the other one. I said, oh my God.
And Hoover was the master of it, but it's kind of a little sideline, but within LAPD intelligence, Hoover would go out to Del Mar racetrack, and he would bring Clyde with him, Clyde Tolson, the number 2 guy at the FBI. And that was his lover. And so what would happen, he would go out there, and Hoover was a heavy bettor, and he would go to the track in Del Mar and bet, and he would lose, like most people do, right? He would lose.
Sure.
But he was never forced to pay what he lost. The mob guys from San Diego and LA, they would take care of all of his losses, and they would pay for a lot of stuff. And so LAPD intelligence knew about it, and I saw the photos. And at the time, Del Mar was very secluded along the beaches. So Hoover and Clyde went for a nice romantic walk one afternoon along the beach, and they thought they were in a private area, and they were showing their affection to each other. And LAPD intelligence is back there snapping away the photographs. And so it just shows you that Hoover even thought he was safe when he was out there, but he wasn't. Another little thing about Hoover showed the documents is that when they came out, they would secretly go down to Tijuana, Mexico, where you could buy anything, and you still can buy anything. And what it implied in the LAPD intelligence report that Hoover was going down there to have some flings with some boys, him and Tolson. That was never confirmed, but it was in the intelligence reports on Hoover. So yeah, they're all pretty much cut from the same cloth. Everybody back in D.C. like that.
Let me ask you real quick, because you got McCord being involved and Hunt being involved, all these dirty tricksters and stuff like that. And then you hear these stories. What was his name? G. Gordon Lidden talking about how they had these plans to like dose protesters with LSD and make them confused, put LSD on their steering wheel and stuff. Do you think it's possible that they could have? And Mae Brussel has this theory too. I'm from Mae Brussel. That perhaps Nixon's dirty tricksters somehow got there ahead of Kennedy and dosed him or got him stoned, put some drugs in his beer or something, and staged this accident.
I'm sure somebody would come up with that theory. I don't think so, though.
Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, this is just Ted doing his thing with his buddies, and they all got drunk, and they may have had some drugs there themselves that they brought. And he was just going out for a ride, take Mary Jo to a nice quiet location, secluded, and he was going to try to do what he was going to do. And instead, he was spooked when he saw that police car, and he sped out of there, and he went off the bridge. And then the cover-up had to start at that stage.
Okay, and you have some stories about Ted Kennedy's parties, because you only got like 10 minutes left. Ted Kennedy's parties on Capitol Hill, that he would lock the offices. Go ahead, what do you got there?
Yeah, well, once again, that came from the LAPD intelligence reports, and also from some guys we knew who were working FBI intelligence at the time, and also out of the D.C. Police Department. And what they said is, he was probably the most powerful senator at the time, and everybody knew him. And so on weekends, when the Capitol was closed, the Capitol Police are there, and they're serving as, night watchmen, basically, but they have police powers, and it's completely locked down. But senators and some of the staff members are allowed access when they come up. So it said on Saturday nights, a lot of times, Ted Kennedy, in his senatorial office, he would have parties for selected individuals to come in. And those were some guys and a lot of young women, staffers and wannabes and so forth. And there would be booze and there would be cocaine. And they would all indulge. And then it also said in the intelligence reports that at times there were, for a better term, they called them orgies within his office. And that was safeguarded because nobody could get in. He never had to worry about it. It was a safe place to be.
Yeah, the safest place to have your orgies on Capitol Hill. Right?
That's right. That's right.
And your
Probably not the first time,
or the last. Now, what about the Henry Ford story, the Ford family molestation, I guess you might call it?
Yeah, well, that one, that was the wife of Henry Ford, the second. I've never seen her or saw a photo, but apparently she's very attractive. And they were having a dinner party at their house, and Teddy was there, and he came in, and he was sitting next to her at the table, and he would reach under the table and run his hand up her leg, and she'd push it off, and he'd do it again, keep doing it to it. And then finally, she was just so upset that she got up and walked away from him. And her husband's there and everybody else, right? It's a dinner party. And this was Teddy. And so she goes to her hotel room in New York. She goes down there. And Teddy follows her down, goes up, starts beating on her door. He wanted to get in. And she finally tells us, hey, get out of here, because what if the news media, photographers at the time, found out about this? And Kennedy just said he had no worries about it because he had it under control, that no media at that time, especially the papers, would write anything derogatory about him because he had it, basically he had them in his pocket. And this was coming from Henry Kissinger, this whole story. He was telling Nixon about it. So there's just loads and loads of stories about Ted Kennedy philandering, running around, pretty much up until the time he developed brain cancer. He was out there doing his thing, and as a lot of the Kennedy men, as Jack and Robert, it was accepted, and that's the way they were, and that's what they did. And their wives just said, "Well, that's the boys."
And even that nephew who was charged with that rape, it just seems like it was just infectious with that family. Just anyway, Mike, we're out of time. How can people get a hold of you if they want to follow you? Do you have a website with all this stuff? You should do a website.
No, I don't, because it takes too much time to get too many emails.
I know, right? That's so true. If the listeners would cut down on emails, we'd get so much more work done.
That's right.
But Mike, thank you so much. We'll be looking forward to Chappaquiddick, the killing of Mary Jo Kopechne. And thank you so much for coming on the show. Anything new comes up, be sure and keep me in the loop, okay?
I will.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, they got Mike Rothmiller, and I really encourage people to go back and look at the previous shows, the one we did on the LA Secret Police, and the other one. He gave me the name. I don't think I wrote it down. Thank you so much, Mike Rothmiller. The book is Chappaquiddick, The Killing of Mary Jo Kopechne. But I really do encourage people to go back and find our previous shows. Just Google Opperman Report, Mike Rothmiller. Great stuff. He always says it comes to the table with really good stuff. Some of his books I'm not crazy about, but other stuff I like. He always has that good inside dirt, and we talk off the air and we email back and forth. So I always appreciate that, having that little inside scoop with my buddy Mike there. Got some shows coming up for you, some really, really good stuff. Darkest Hour, John Alight, former mafia enforcer for John Gotti, and Sammy the Bull Gravano, the Gambino family. Spoke to him for 2 hours. And also spoke to Grant Stern from, what's it called? TheSternFacts.com. And we talked about Felix Sater, Trump's pal, who was this Russian mobster who was involved in the Baylock group and the Soho Hotel and all this kind of shenanigans. And he's the one that wrote that email to Trump Jr. saying, I'm going to bring in Putin and all my guys, and we're going to win the election for our guy, for Trump. Grant Stern's doing some excellent work in this and the Rosneft story and stuff you don't see reported anywhere else. So check out that show. It might be in the member section. We have a lot of content this week that we'll be putting in the member section, so keep an eye on that. You can go to the member section at OppermanReport.com. That's how you support this show. You want to get 13 months You email me, oppermanreport@gmail.com. I'll give you 13 months for $60. And now a word from our sponsors. oppermanreport.com. Hey, do you like what you're hearing? Do you like the work that you see us doing here at Opperman Report? You can support that work by becoming a member at oppermanreport.com. And as you have access to over 200 exclusive shows and interviews that you can't find on YouTube or Spreaker or iHeart or iTunes or KYAH. You can't find them anywhere else online, exclusive to our member sections, to our members. Also, too, there's images, videos, documents, court docs. And don't forget, you can hear your ad played here on the Opperman Report, reach hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people on a daily basis because the show is repeated every day all over the world. Contact me at oppermanreport@gmail.com and I'll give you a good deal on advertising rates.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525. 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.